Woo! So excited. Woo. Oh, so many backup. All right. Yeah, my name is Min, and here's the Xudong. So yes, this is the last session. Anybody is hungry yet?
Yeah.
Yes, me too. So let's get this started and let's get this over with. All right. I have the questions like for all of you folks. Think about in your teams, whether like you do the manual test or the automation test. Do you think this test is helping your team? If you agree, like please raise your hands up. Okay, half, okay. Some tests help, okay, some people like doesn't. I have like some quick story, so like, please bear with me. So like, okay, when we think like the test is not helpful, here's the stories. This is like the Kawlerk 25. It's a machine, it's a medical machine to help to cure the patients like who got the tumor or cancers. And it's not have the good history because it's have like a high emitting like when it's to cure like patients and like it's caused they to like injure or even cause like they're like dead as well because of like it's a lack of testing. But in the other hand, like when we try to do the test, this case study, porno musics, they try like to have high fidelities music players. Yeah, make sure it's like okay, the flag files are like we get the best music qualities as much as they want, and like they invest time like to test and make sure like quality is there. But when the times comes out and they try to push the product to the market, the competitor is already there, and they kind of have the difficult time like to fit the market because like, yeah, the competitor is already there. So it's kind of fall to on the dilemma like, okay, if we not test, the risk is there, but we try to implement the test, the risk is still there as well. So is it like we do more the test like reverse? Common things like when the QAs or the test, like we found like, yeah, as usual, that's we do the test, but the bug is still found, the production issue like still happening. We try to implement like the optimal test, and it's so much take long times and it's flaky. Also, like we try to have the metrics to make sure it's like, okay, we have a qualities, but it seems like we get a good directions or like does it make sense? I will hand over to the Xudong for like navigate some of these topics then. Over to you.
Thank you, Ming. So next, in the next 20 or 25 minutes, we are going to walk you through those three primary problems that Ming just talked through. So the first issue is, what if some bugs or defect happened in my system, or what's wrong with our automated test? And we are going to talk about our metric system. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So the first issue we are going to talk about is what if an issue happened? So now let's imagine there's a situation in your own team or in the team that you have ever worked with. Imagine if an issue happened. What is the natural reaction in your team?
Who takes this ticket?
Right? Like, I'm sure at least some of us in this group is thinking, QA should test this harder, right? Why isn't this defect be caught in the test phase? Here we are going to make a statement. We are going to say, if you are thinking about this, maybe you are doing something wrong. Why? So we will start it from the process of achieving the quality. Dr. Deming has a very famous quote called build quality into the product instead of trying to inspect it afterwards. What does that mean? It means quality derives from the process of building the software instead of from testing it. In a layman's word, that means the bug exists because we build it. It exists not because we test it. right? So what does quality mean? Let's discuss this terminology a little bit. So generally speaking, there are two main perspectives to talk about quality. So a more traditional and a more common way to define it is from the quality control perspective. A very common example could be the standard from the International Standard Organization. Like in that case, you could assess your software depending on their accessibility, functionality, or performance, security, like all of those criteria that you can assess. And then you have some entry criteria, exit criteria. If your software does not meet some criteria, you do not push it to the next phase. And in this case, you can say a quality software probably means a quality which functions very, very well, has no issue or very few issues. So that's how you can put quality. But there's another perspective. You can also think about quality, which is more from the user perspective. We call it quality in use perspective. What does that mean? I'm going to give an example. I'm assuming some of us in this space is trying out Insomnia recently, the new API testing tool. I'm not sure how many of you have noticed that yesterday they released a new version which encouraged people to migrate their data to cloud. And once you updated the software, you get a welcome dialog. And on that welcome dialog, they encourage you to register an account. And there was a small text below the welcome dialog. They say, if you do not want to register an account, you can export your data. And there was a continue button. Many people on the internet, many Insomnia users didn't really understand that export my data text is clickable. They do not know they can interact with that button. And then once they continued, because they didn't migrate the data to the cloud and they choose not to use the cloud version, their data are still on the laptop. However, they cannot access it through the software. So it seems to them that their data has been lost during this upgrade process. That's exactly what Ming encountered yesterday.
My work is gone.
Right, and he spent like half an hour trying to get back his data. So I'm using this example to tell you that in this case, think about that. Does Insomnia has any bug in that release? Maybe not, right? Because that's how it's supposed to be. But the user didn't really understand it, and it caused huge outcries on the GitHub issue pages. There are so many discussions about that. So that comes to our second point. If the user cannot really understand your software, even if it's behaving as you expected, you might not call it as a quality software. Similarly, if the user cannot use your software or use your app with very minimal disruption, for example, every time I try to do something, the app crashed, or it just cannot connect to the server, we wouldn't call it as a quality software. And similarly, if the stakeholder or the organization cannot evolve the software with a minimal or a controllable cost, we wouldn't call it as a quality software either. So with all of those characteristics in mind, we would be thinking quality from another perspective. So when we look at those defects, instead of simply asking the testing phase, we should probably also be able to ask, can such issues be prevented by more collaboration, by breaking the silos of developer, BA, QA, and project managers? And also, we can also be asking ourselves, are users using our software as we expected? And also, is our code base still healthy as we go? So in this section, we would like you to understand that to make your software better, to prevent defect, you could break the silos. Do not work in silos. Quality does not equals to no bugs. Also, understand your users is very important, and also care about those leading factors. Care about your code base health, and not only just to try to find defect, try to prevent defects. So that's what we want to say about the first scenario, and I'll pass to Ming to talk about the automated test.
All right, automations everywhere. So what happened like when we try to implement our automation tests? Yeah, we got like slow feedback, flaky test, run test 10 times, pass 6 times, and another 4 times, I don't know why, just rerun it again. And even like we have the test, the issue like still found. You might see like the test pyramid like hundreds of times, so I'm not gonna explain like what is this. My point to bring this test pyramid is every time when we try to have the automation test, how are you decide like, okay, which layer it should be? Okay, I have like some exercise so we can play along. This is a test sign up forms. We just like bring the one part for the password rule. So here it is. It's a requirement. The passwords must contain the uppercase, must contain the special characters, make sure like the length is there. My questions to all of you is, if you have to write the test, let's say it's like Selenium Cypress, how many tests you think like is enough to cover this? 1, 2, 10, or 74 something?
All of them.
Or like, okay, infinite. So, if like you have numbers like in your mind, the next thing is like, do we contribute our test shape in the teams like to be like this? It can be like another observation as well, like, okay, do the QAs like work this alone to like make this test like a big and like it's hard to maintain, take a lot of time to feedback, take a lot of time like to get the feedback, and like yeah, it's just a QA like to maintaining this. Luckily, like let's say if your team's like, okay, the developers write the test, write unit test, write integration test, but sometimes you still feel like, man, I kind of not have the confidence enough, like if I didn't put the test in the UI. And yeah, I kind of feel like this is all the time. What is this feelings? Okay, there is the psychologist terms is law of the instruments, which is like you know the tools, one tools like to solve the problem, and you try to use that tool to solve every problem. So let's say it's like you know how to use the hammer. You can solve the problem by using the hammer. So now like you see everything is a nail. And how like impact on this, like, okay, hey, I know the tools, I can solve the problem, how bad this could be. Another stories and another examples again, a lot of example. Let's say we are the QAs in these products, tech graders, and this product, like, yeah, they just show the content about, like, okay, what the latest tech is. And they have zero tolerance in terms of, like, branding, look and feel. From the previous slide that I mentioned that, okay, we know the one tools, let's say, like, we use Selenium, Cypress, like, to write the test. Oh, we try to write the user flow, the basic flow that, okay, I can search the content is there, I can navigate, okay, go to the correct page. But one day, developers, they mess with the CSS and the content is still showing, but how I can read this? Is like the Selenium Cypress like gonna help on this? Yes, if you think about like in the case that, okay, I'll try to like verify like on the CSS. But instead, it's gonna be easier. Like, what happens if we try to do like visual regressions? It's gonna be easier to like, okay, just use the specific the tools and like try to solve like every problem. So yes, the automations is not a silver bullet that can solve everything, and make sure like you put the test in the correct layers and understand like, okay, what needs to be done before like you jump to the tools and have the obsessions that, okay, I'm gonna use this to solve in everything. And I will pass the next section like to the Xudongs again then.
Thank you, Ming. Next part, we are going to talk about the last scenario we said, which is how do you measure your quality? So I'm sure this is a very interesting topic for most of us because quality is something which cannot be measured, right? If you think about your case, maybe in some companies they are measuring if how many bugs can be covered or can be found in X months. Or sometimes we have some indirect metrics to talk about our test coverage or something like that. Like those are super common metrics. But when you really think through them, are they really ensuring our quality? Sometimes maybe not. And about all of those quality metrics myths, we are going to tell you some of those metrics are possibly harmful. Why? Let's look at this example. Let's say the tester's KPI is to find 10 bugs in 30 bugs in one iteration. And then the developer's KPI is to find no more than 3 major bugs in one iteration. Then what's going to happen? When an issue is found, does that sound familiar that the developer and the QA or the tester is going to argue, this is a bug? No, this is a feature. No, this is a bug. No, this is a feature. Right, does that sound familiar? And also, when this thing happened, a lot of time is going to be wasted on classifying the issue. If the issue is going to be a major issue, or medium issue, or low severity issue. And while a lot of time are spent on this sort of dispute, nobody is actually taking care of tracing down why did that happen to understand the root cause of the issue. And then a lot of valuable times are actually lost. So in that case, the team would be fighting with each other instead of collaborating with each other. This is because some individual contributions are measured. And this relates back to the previous talk when we talk about if you care about the input, you are probably going to be led to some bad outcomes. But if you care about the outcomes, you are possibly going to get something good. So what is some good metrics? Remember to revert the process. Try to think about what you want to achieve. So this is a diagram from the book Accelerate, where DORA matrix is proposed. On the right-hand side, you can possibly list something that you want to achieve in your organization. And if you revert the process and you think about what can lead to those outcomes that you want to achieve, and then you can possibly list it out a couple of things that might be helpful to achieve what you want to achieve. I wouldn't say this would apply to every organization, but similar logic could be applicable to many of us. And also, DORA metrics, as an example, if you do want to have something to start with, this is something that I personally would recommend, as mentioned in multiple different talks today as well. But on the other side, there's still another thing we want to make about the metric system, which is even if you're looking at some very, very useful metrics, if you just blindly believe in it, something could still go wrong. Why do I say so? Let's look at another example. So in this case, we are going to use code coverage as an example because I'm assuming most of us would agree with me that code coverage is helpful to the team. But in this example, I'm going to show you if I simply believe if I could achieve 100% test coverage, we are all good, then we are screwed. Right, okay, let's look at this code snippet. So this is a very simple class called xconf. It has 2 methods to take a string, and it's going to tell you if the string that I gave it is a Thai session of today or an English session of today. How does that work? It's very simple. It maintains an array of all the English sessions today. And then if I put a string into it, if I find a match, I say that's an English session. If I didn't find a match, that's a Thai session. OK, now let's test this code. We put our session into this program. The more we test, the worse. Apparently, we are getting 50% of branch coverage because apparently we are only covering that English branch. So to achieve 100% of code coverage, it's also very simple. We just cover the Thai session case. So now we got 100% of instruction code coverage and also branch coverage. And I think, oh, this is so great. Now let's push that to production. And then, well, the bug is still there. Maybe some people as smart as you has already know what the issue is. What if I'm going to talk about something completely is not a topic today at all? What if I want to do an advertisement for my employer today? I say ThoughtWorks Thailand has been certified as the great place to work for the 3rd year in a row. Apparently, it's not a topic today in XConf, but what if I click the button? It's going to tell me, yes, it is a Thai session in XConf. Well, what does that mean? That means even if some good metrics, like code coverage, even if you can achieve 100%, it only proves that this piece of code has been tested, but it doesn't really mean you have been testing it correctly. Like you have been testing all the test cases you need to cover. So in this section, we would like people to understand metrics is very complicated. There are some good metrics, some bad metrics. Remember to choose your metrics wisely. And also, even if you have been choosing your metrics wisely, you've been choosing some useful metrics, still stay vigilant, even if you are getting those good numbers. All right, now Ming is going to take you back to our journey and give you a summary.
All right, so roll credits again. Is the ball test is the worst? I think like before we answer the question, we can ask yourself that, okay, we still like testing the silos, just let the QA test alone. Do we really understand like our users, how they behave to use our products? The test that we try to have is repeat itself? Or like, do we really know like what type of test that we really need like for this kind of scenarios? Are we measuring the right things? And back again, as I asked you at the first that, yeah, is this test is really help the teams? So yes, the more test is can be worse, but it could happen, but it's not necessary. Key takeaway, yeah, the quality doesn't mean no bugs. Quality is for someone's value. Can be like your customers. That's like how they evaluate the products. Can be like your business, how like they get the revenues. Can be like your operations or like production support or customer support, like how can they work on with your products. The quality is not solely responsibilities of the QA. So you see it's like the test shapes already are like, okay, the good thing, the good and like the not so good. And yeah, try like to prevent that happen. Always remember that every test comes with the cost. So yeah, make sure it's like we didn't repeat ourselves, like repeat like the test. And understanding what needs to be tested is more important than like, okay, how to just test this. Also, it's like the metrics can be helpful and harmful. So it's not just like you like set the metrics there and like just left it there forever. So make sure it's like, okay, we set the metrics, we monitoring them, and like try to get the feedback like to the teams like, okay, is it still make sense to like comply or like applying this? So yeah, that's gonna be our conclusions for these presentations.